All right, so let's jump into the scanning networks. We're going to try to get into talking a little bit about how to analyze and do assessments, maybe work with some vulnerability scanners, do port scanning using things like Nmap, and things like that. So when we get into it, if you're a penetration tester, you should be looking to uncover how you're going to be able to get onto the network through the footprinting and reconnaissance, but then also what information can you look at maybe when you run the scan. So things like IP addresses, open and closed ports, information about the magic number with the operating system, and possibly mapping out the system's architecture. Being able to see services and processes are pretty important as well. And here on 105, in your book, they have the delineation between three different types of scanning: port scanning, network scanning, and then there's one additional one, the vulnerability scanning. And a lot of times the scanners that we use, things like Retina, Nessus, Nmap, a lot of them have all three of them built into it, just because they've been around a little while, and that's what the customers typically look for. But definitely know the different types of scans that are available out there specifically. So if we wanted to just talk briefly about some of the magic that is TCP/IP, what's the difference between TCP and UDP? Three-way handshake. Yeah, and usually the way that I look at it is it's TCP is connection oriented, UDP is connectionless. So it's a fire and forget, fire and forget. So if we're going to stand up a conversation, you meet somebody for the first time, that's how you can think about it, is that's going to be a connection. You're going to make the connection with that person. You're going to reach out, we're going to handshake. Hello, my name is Ben. You reach back, you say, hi, my name is whatever, and then we can then have the dialogue after that. So if we wanted to take that concept with the three-way handshake being, what was that? Was that TCP or UDP? TCP being connection oriented, UDPs being the connectionless. Then what and why does that make a difference for us? Why is that important? Why is it important to know what way it's communicated?
Well, doesn't TCP create a session?
It creates a session, that's right. Whereas UDP is oftentimes used for like video games or streaming media, streaming audio, things like that, where it doesn't necessarily need a receipt to tell that it got there. It fires and forgets, fires and forgets. And we're going to go through and we're going to play with a few different tools here. But on in your book here on page 106, checking for live systems, we start to talk about a few different things here, and one of them specifically is this thing called war dialing. So back in the olden days here in the 1980s, there was a couple of concepts that came out. You may have seen the movie War Games. Do you want to play a game with Joshua and Nawapa? But you can definitely be able to get a lot of information based off of some of the older POTS systems, the plain old telephone systems, because a lot of people still have those systems. They haven't upgraded to like a VoIP or some sort of newer technology. So it could still have some sort of PBX here on 107, where it's a private branch exchange. And a lot of times I think about the old-fashioned black and white, where the lady's kind of sitting in the chair, poking all of them from one to another with the switch and the patch. But you can kind of think about it. There's a few different tools that are used for war dialing, and you will absolutely see war dialing on your exam. You absolutely will see it on your exam. So keep it in mind. Another one here on 108 is this thing called war driving. And we'll play with war driving a little bit in the wireless domain. And it's pretty cool. I have a couple of different antennas that will actually plug into another tool. And I'll just show you a few different things and a couple of different websites that war driving. But basically driving around with a wireless enabled laptop and being able to gather anything and everything that is out on the network. So we're going to go through and play with some tools that will give us a lot of different things. And one's going to be Nmap. We're going to get into HPing2, HPing3, and basically going in and checking for open ports, seeing if we can do different types of scans, and essentially being able to do a lot of interesting stuff like operating system fingerprinting, banner grabbing, vulnerability scanning, and being able to really map out the entire network based off of these scans that we're doing. So a lot of different techniques that we're going to get into in this domain shown up on the overhead. Out of this manifest that you see here, these 12 or so that you see up on the screen, I'll tell you, out of any slide decks that we're going to do, this slide right here, almost every one of these will be on your exam. Almost every one of them will be on your exam. So we're going to spend a little bit of time going through these different types of scanning techniques. And we'll come back to this in a second. I think it's probably easier if we go and play with some of these tools first and then go back and explain what exactly just happened there. We'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that we can actually go through and try to evade intrusion detection systems, because in the Far East people out there, that's one of the things that they do. Gather operating systems fingerprints. You guys, I don't know if has anybody heard of the magic number for operating system? Like each operating system typically will have a specific number that's associated with that operating system, and a lot of times that's called magic number. So
is that the same number that's in the ISO when you get it from Windows?
I don't know that. I don't know that 100%. I mean, we could go out and Google and we could see, magic numbers for operating systems, and we could probably correlate that. I'm not 100% sure though, Brian, for that. And we'll play a little bit with some of these banner grabbing tools as we go through and do this. Bunch of different types of vulnerability scanners that are out there, and we're going to play with Nmap today a little, HPing3 as well as HPing2. Go and grab some banners with Telnet, and we might even get into setting up a proxy here. So when we go in and set up a proxy, we'll be using some different tools that are later on in the chapter. So one of the things that they talk about as well is, how do we go about keeping ourselves hidden on the network? And you can use a few different tools to be able to, either bounce traffic from another source to you, like make a hop and obfuscate yourself or hide, but basically go through and keep it anonymous.